All right, hello everyone. We've got a couple of minutes after the hour, so we can go ahead and kick things off here. Thank you all for joining us in the first of a six-part series for new executive directors in California's community action, or if you're interested in the role of executive director. So today we have with us Jeremy Tobias, who is the CEO of the Community Action Partnership of Kern. He also represents Cal Kappa's board of directors as president currently, and he has prepared for us some of what he wished he knew as he got started in community action. And we also have David Knight on the line, who is the executive director for Cal Kappa. And David, if you like, you can say a couple of words. You don't necessarily have to come off camera if you don't want to, but if you'd like to introduce the group.
Yeah, thanks, Lawrence. I appreciate it. Thanks for everybody being here. One thing that we want to say is that, we have 60 members across our network, and 15 of those are new EDs. So this group is going to be really crucial as we start to build and go forward. So I appreciate it. I look forward to it. I just want to thank our current board members for being on. Brenda Callahan Johnson, who currently serves as our past president. And of course, our lead speaker today, which is Jeremy Tobias. And Jeremy is our current president of the board. I've just been really excited to work with these two and all of you, going forward and being able to achieve what we want to do and really being able to focus. So thanks everybody for being here. Look forward to hearing today and look forward to hearing the conversation. Thanks.
Thanks, David. And I guess as a proper introduction, I am Lawrence Heiner. I'm the Director of Training and Technical Service here at Cal Kappa. And as we go through our presentation today, please feel free to drop questions in the chat. We'll be looking over the chat for questions. And then if you have something more immediate, Jeremy suggested that it's okay to come off mute and ask questions as we go. We'll be running for about 90 minutes today to provide some time for questions and answers at the end. And then as we wrap up, I'll provide a little bit more information about the next session. But without further ado, Jeremy.
Thank you, Lawrence. Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for rescheduling. I know this was scheduled a couple days ago, and I came down with a really nasty head cold, and Lawrence, so we had to delay this a couple days. So I apologize if it affected your schedule too much, but I appreciate everyone being here today. As Lawrence mentioned, I am Jeremy Tobias, CEO of Community Action Partnership of Kern, or CAPK. I've been CEO about 13 years now. I'm also president of the Cal Kappa board. And so I'm really excited to be here to present to the group today, the new ED CEO group. And as Lawrence mentioned, this is a six-part series. There's going to be various topics throughout the series. This is meant as kind of a general overview, kind of a high-level overview of various topics. Some of the topics I talk about today may be discussed in more detail in future sessions. And I guess if one of the topics particularly interests you, you could always request one of those topics be a future session. So, and I'd be happy to answer questions if you want to put them in the chat or speak up. Also, if you need any additional documents, I'd be happy to send them to you as well. You can add those to the chat as well. So I'm going to share my screen. Is that visible? Okay. So I'm going to offer you, it's kind of a long slide deck. So I'm going to kind of power through this really quick. We will make the slide deck available, so don't worry about trying to write this stuff down. My staff and I worked on this, and it's kind of a combination of other presentations we've given. So there is some good detail in here. And like I said, we can always do question and answer afterwards. Let me start the slideshow. Okay. Obviously, everyone knows this. The promise of community action, you probably all recognize this, or you should. The national promise Many agencies start meetings by reciting the promise. I know we have from time to time used it on our board meetings. We start our board meetings with reciting the promise of community action. It kind of reminds us and grounds us in our thinking and what we're here for. And then this is our mission and vision here at CAPK. Through our strategic, we developed this through our strategic planning process. And these are important items for your agency, and it should be driven by your strategic planning. And I'll talk about our strategic planning process here in a few minutes. But we use these as well. We have these posted throughout the agency and we use them at meetings and whatnot. And this is a little bit about CAPK. Quick snapshot. We're a private 501c3 private cap organization. Our annual budget's approaching $110 million this year. We have just over 900 employees, 16 different programs, and we serve about 100,000 people annually. I will mention though, that is unduplicated, unique individuals. However, it is a little higher than that. As everybody knows, or you may not know this now, but putting together unduplicated counts can be a problem for community action agencies. It's very complex. We're getting close to cracking that nut. We are putting together, and I'll talk about a little bit later in the program, but we're putting together some really interesting CRM programs and software, and we are getting close to having a true unduplicated count. This number right here is solid, unduplicated. However, it's going to be a little bit higher. It does not have all of our WIC clients in there, and it also is missing some of our food bank clients. So this is probably going to creep up to 120,000, I would expect, once we get a final unduplicated count. But I'll talk about some of the issues with that here in a little bit. This is our service area. We're primarily we're based in Kern County, which is Bakersfield metro area, and that's in the center of the map. The county has a population of, I think it's around 950,000, approaching 1 million. The metro Bakersfield area is about 500,000. We do have programs that stretch outside of our county. We have up in San Joaquin County in the Stockton area, we operate Early Head Start. And then in San Bernardino County, we have a few of our WIC offices stretch out to San Bernardino County. If you see that flag way out there on the border of Nevada, with Nevada and Arizona out there, that's Needles. We actually have a WIC office way out there because I think no one else wanted it. So the state asked us to take it over. And then we also have up and down the valley, we have a migrant AP program we operate up and down the Central Valley. Now a little bit about our administration at CAPK, how we operate, and particularly our board of directors. I'll get into that. So governance structure is a very important part of community action agencies and CSBG. We have here at CAPK, we have a very active board, and I mean that in a good way. They participate, of course, in our monthly board meetings, and we require each board member to be on 1 or 2 standing committees monthly. So all of our board members are attending a minimum of 2, if not 3 meetings a month. They also participate in items such as our strategic plan goal groups that meet regularly. And of course, we invite them to press conferences and ribbon cuttings and networking events and fundraisers, et cetera. So they're very active. And, from my perspective, it's a more active board, and a participatory board is really a more supportive board. So the more you can get them involved and participating in your activities, and whether they're press conferences or fundraising activities or food drives, the more supportive they're going to be of you and your programs and your staff. Also, we're a Brown Act agency. I think most CAP agencies are. And of course, the Brown Act carries its own unique set of rules, and we do follow the Brown Act. We're required to follow the Brown Act. So our meetings are open to the public, and we have to post our agendas, et cetera. So that's an important topic to remember. The governance structure, our CAP-K board is
So-
15.
Jeremy, I have a question if we could ask. Why do you feel that you're a Brown Act agency?
We asked our attorney, our legal counsel, many years ago if we had to follow the Brown Act, and what triggered it for us is we have a sitting board of supervisors member, an elected board of supervisors member sitting on our board, and they're one of our funding sources. And that triggered the Brown Act for us. Now, some community action agencies may not trigger the Brown Act. They may not have triggered the Brown Act. So some may not follow it, but we do follow it. It's not fun, but it's just something we do. And it does, I guess, open it up to, more public participation, obviously. But it's a whole discussion of itself and set of rules. If anybody out there is required to follow the Brown Act, I'd be happy to answer questions offline on it and point you in the right direction. I had some experience with it when I came to CAP-K because I used to work in city government. And of course, that was our life. The Brown Act was our life in city government. I mean, almost everything we did, but it's going to be different for being private 501c3s. The Brown Act typically isn't structured for private nonprofits. It's not set up for that. But our unique situation with electeds being seated on our board and that being a funding stream for us, that triggered it for us. So we operate like a public entity when it comes to meetings. We have a 15-seat board makeup, 5 seats, 3 groups of 5, public, private, and low income. We're all required to have those 3 sectors, and people have different size boards based on that makeup. And then we have 5 standing committees, an executive committee, personnel committee, budget and finance, program and review, and audit and pension committee. Then we have various ad hoc committees that are appointed from by the board chair from time to time. And I will mention something. A couple things are important. Board training is important. This year we always have trouble training our board. It's a chore, we've tried different things. Do we have a special meeting and train them? Do we try and do 10 minutes every regular meeting and do training? What do we do? So this year we've set up a virtual training schedule, and we're just going to do monthly trainings, on Teams or Zoom or whatever, and then we'll record it and they can either sit in person or watch it later. And we've developed a schedule of trainings over the course of the year on different topics, CSBG, Roma, DEI, Head Start regulations, just different things. And we'll just run a series of those throughout the year. So we're going to try that this year, a virtual training calendar, and hopefully that'll be easier on our board members and get higher participation rates. The other important thing with the board members is who you get on your board is super important. So you need to really make an effort on recruiting board members, and you really should never stop. You should always be recruiting board members, even if you don't have an open seat. You should always be thinking about who would be good board members out in your community. And when you talk to someone that you think would be a good board member, don't be afraid to ask them, hey, if there's an opening, would you ever want to sit on the CAP board? And you can talk about all the great things, but always be recruiting. And good board members make the difference between a good CAP agency and a bad CAP agency. So it's super important. Okay, the next topic I want to talk a little bit about is CSBG. Of course, CSBG is our most important funding stream in community action. Many people call it the glue that holds our agencies and programs together. And it's really your only federal funding stream where the spending decisions rest at the local level with your board. You get to pick and choose how you're going to spread that money amongst your low-income programs. As I acknowledge in this slide, our reports are about due here. And we've really incorporated the reporting we do through CSBG. It hasn't always been this way, but we've worked really hard the last years where we incorporate that into our working knowledge throughout the year. This shouldn't be an 11th hour last minute exercise for your agency. It really needs to be into your normal routines about prepping for that throughout the year. And it's difficult to change that mindset with staff if you're not used to it, but but it really shouldn't come down to a last minute fire drill. I think it's important to make sure you incorporate that as part of your normal activities and thinking about your CSBG reports. Here's the 4 modules in CSBG. Again, I'm not going to read through all these. You're probably familiar with them. Some highlights. I'll just mention, we use our CSBG funding at CapK for, we have a couple of youth centers we use it on. We use it to subsidize our food bank. In VITA, we use it for VITA services. We've used it in the past for conducting a CDFI study on forming a CDFI. This year we're adding we're going to fund a housing administrator position, because that's one of the new programs we want to get into is affordable housing, and I'll highlight that a little bit here in a few minutes. We use it on homeless activities, et cetera. So again, CSBG gives you the opportunity to spread that money around the community as needed. What our community level initiative we've highlighted in our recent report is our M Street Navigation Center, which is a homeless center we operate. And it's through the continuum of care, and it's helped build capacity in the community. So it's really, truly a community-wide initiative, which we think is pretty important. And then I'll get in, and I'll mention also module 4, when you talk about national performance standards and demographics. I mentioned demographics earlier, but it's really important. This is important, and your NPIs, and I'll talk about this a little bit more here in a few minutes, and data. What we've done is we've taken our NPIs and folded them into how we report out to our committees at the board level. So like our PRE committee, when we report out, we used to just do standard reporting, like each program would do whatever they wanted. And what we've done is we've streamlined those into standard reporting practices, where we're reporting out through utilizing NPIs indicators. And so that way, as we prepare these monthly reports every month for the committee, they're all rolling up. And we're preparing reports for future CSBG reporting and things like that. So if you can build that into your systems and not make it a unique endeavor every time you have to issue a report, I think that's really important. And it makes life easier, and it builds consistency throughout your agency. Okay, so next I'll talk a little bit about how we developed our strategic plan. And I'll mention we used our community needs assessment process, CSBG process, and we identified critical issues that we do anyways through our community needs process, and we use that to help develop our strategic plan. And it's a 4 to 5 year strategic plan. And one of the first things we did when we were developing the strategic plan is we wanted to set a long-term vision for the agency. Hey, where do we want to be in 10 years? Even though we're developing a 4 to 5 year strategic plan, in 10 years, where do we want to be? And this just helped guide us on some of the new projects and whatnot. So these are some 10-year vision or goals. And what they are is the first 2 are new initiatives, which we are not involved in. I mentioned earlier, we want to get into low-income housing arena. And so that was one of our long-term visions, and also entering more into the workforce development arena as well. So those would be 2 new program lines for us. And you'll see that scattered throughout the presentation as I move forward. And then also, kind of a standard goal. A lot of people, hey, we want to be the premier community action agencies in the Central Valley. And so how do you measure that? There's different ways you measure that, whether you use organizational standards or pathways to excellence, or, pushing CCAP on through your staff, things like that. If you can develop things like that, that might be a good way of measuring, are you becoming a premier community action agency in your area or your area of work. So one of the early components we developed in our strategic plan was our organizational values. And now this sets the tone for our company, and it's our internal values that we follow. And these tie back to everything we do on a daily basis. So you can see there's 5 items there, just values we have in the organization that we all share as a team. So, for instance, if you look at like item 2 is teamwork, you know, effective communication, enthusiastic collaboration, commitment to organizational goals. As a team, you know, when we're working on projects, we always point to that. Are we communicating effectively, et cetera? And that helps guide us through our activities and meetings and whatnot. And if we start straying off that, you know, our employees and teammates correct course, et cetera, and make sure we're following these organizational values. And then, so as I mentioned, we used our community needs assessment, and we identified critical issues in our community. And this helped us in developing our goals, which we'll get to here in a few minutes. But you can see the critical issues that were highlighted in our community. And you'll kind of notice too, there's 3 categories: family, community, and agency. And those are kind of tied back to Roma baseline. But we use those, developed them into categories, and these are the critical issues. And you can see, you know, insufficient access to nutritious foods is one, limited affordable housing options, and rising unemployment is another. And so you'll start seeing themes develop through that we utilize as we developed our goals in our strategic plan. And again, tying back to those 3 categories, they're a part of Roma. And Roma, and I'll talk about Roma a little bit more here in a minute, but Roma is the framework for continuous growth and process improvement. And there's 3 goals in Roma, and you can see the 3 areas I highlight: family, community, and agency, are all kind of tied to those 3 goals: goal 1, 2, and 3. So here's the goals we came up with in our strategic plan for our 5-year strategic plan. And I won't read them all to you. There's 6 goals there you can read, and of course you'll have access to the slideshow after the conclusion. I'll pick one. Like goal 4 is CapK seeks to be an employer of choice and attract and retain a high quality workforce to achieve the organization's desired results. So that's goal 4. So, you know, and that means a lot more than just hiring good employees. So when we wrote that, and we spent a lot of time writing these, is of course it means, hey, we want to hire the best and brightest employees. Of course, you know, everyone would say that's what that means, but when you think about it and take a deep dive into it, that kind of snowballs and grows into other things. So if you hire the best and brightest employees, then that's going to lead to maybe bringing in the best and brightest board members, because they're going to want to volunteer on a board of an agency that has high quality staff. So now you have the best and brightest staff, the best and brightest board members. Then all of a sudden, all your community partners want to work with you. So you get the best and brightest community partners who want to partner with you, because they want to work with a CAP agency or another partner that's awesome. Then all of a sudden, the best and biggest and brightest donors want to donate to you. And then the best vendors in town want to do business with you because, hey, they pay on time and they're a good organization and they know what they're doing. And so it kind of snowballs. So it's not just about, you know, being the choice for the best employees possible, but that grows into being the best choice for in all aspects of the job. So that totally rolls and grows up into something bigger and better. The picture you see there, it's kind of, you can't see the whole group, but that's our staff. The last time we did a staff retreat, which was May 2019, before the pandemic hit, we all got together and did a staff retreat. And this is one of our staff had a drone and took a picture, but you can see about half our staff there, and I don't know if you can see it, but some of them are in costumes and whatnot. So it was kind of a fun day. And then the last thing I'll say about our strategic plan is implementation and evaluation. So this is really the most important part in my mind of the strategic plan. Once you put one together, is not using it as a check the box activity and not something, okay, we put it on the shelf or whatever. It's something we had to do or we think we should do or whatever. But you really want to build into your agency continuous review and reporting. And you have to kind of mandate it through your organization. And we've done that. In some ways we've done that is we try and communicate often to all the employees through emails and memos and newsletters and different things. That's always a good thing. But we've mandated reporting. What we did is we we incorporated our strategic plan into the way that we report to our committees and to our board. So we have mandated reporting specifically on strategic plan goals to our board committees. And then most of the time, most memos are written to our board. We added sections to our staff memos that will indicate how is this accomplishing our strategic plan, this item we're bringing before you. We have an action item, and we usually cite a goal in our strategic plan or in our memos when we address the board. And sometimes it becomes kind of this like, yeah, we know this is part of the trying to build the best workforce possible. But repeating that to the board over and over and having staff repeat that, that's where you get a strategic plan that starts becoming an active part of your routine in your life. We also set up goal groups. So we actually set up groups that for each goal, each of the 6 goals that has a goal group. And those groups are comprised of various staff, and it's very vertical. So we have, you'll have a couple of high-level staff, a couple of mid-managers, a couple of line staff in there, mixed through there. And it's usually an area they find interesting, a topic they find of interest. And they're in a goal group, and they're tackling the goals and all the activities under those goals in the strategic plan. They're out there tackling them and tracking them. And those goal groups have a lead, and they report to the committees, and they even meet as goal group leads once a month and discuss their activities and their accomplishments on their goal group. So we make a lot of effort to try and make sure our strategic plan is part of who we are and what we do. And it's reflective of that. Okay, now I'm going to roll into Roma. Everyone, oh, what an exciting topic. From my perspective, I think Roma's, it is recommended, it's highly recommended you try and follow the Roma philosophy, embrace it and utilize it as an important model. It's a good way to assess your organization and the programs and the impacts you're having in your community and the impacts of the funding. And look, you need to have, whether you're a small nonprofit or a big private company, you need to have some kind of continuous improvement model, whether it's Roma or you decide you have a better model, that's fine. But you should have a continuous improvement model to follow. And we utilize Roma. We use it as our continuing improvement model. So the purpose and goals of Roma help us align our reporting more closely to the CSBG reporting standards, our strategic plan organizational standards, and it improves the processes that keep our agency compliant with public laws and regulations. It's externally facing. It helps us focus on measured outcomes as it pertains directly to our agency mission of helping our clients become empowered to be self-sufficient. As an internal tool, helps us support staff development through improved process development, improved communication, and improved collaboration. And you're probably starting to pick up on some themes is tying our strategic plan and these things together. So basically what Roma is it's this, it's on the left is the continuous improvement, the standard kind of private practice continuous improvement process model. And Roma takes that and puts it into a social service agency kind of setup. And you can see that on the right. It's that standard assess and reassess model of planning, implementation, achieving results and evaluating those results, and then assessing those and starting over in the cycle. And it's that standard cycle. And it's important that you have some kind of continuous improvement cycle in your agency. Okay, now I'm going to dive into, let me do a time check here, 1:30. Okay, we're all right. Now I'm going to dive into our fiscal operations here at the agency, which is really important for all agencies. And this is where most of the time, if a CAP agency is going to get into trouble, it's usually around fiscal. That just seems to be, the problem for many agencies. So I have a really close relationship with my CFO and the team in the finance department. And I think it's important that you have that relationship. And our team here in our finance department and the CEO's office, myself, we kind of developed these goals for success in the fiscal department. So these aren't robot. This isn't a strategic plan. This is the goals for success that we implement in our fiscal department to try and make sure we had a high quality financial system in our agency. So the first is governance. Goal 1, governance and accountability. This is all about regular board communication of the financial performance, and that can include many types of reports or ways of doing that. Agency-wide financial statements are important, profit and loss, balance sheets, those kind of things. Agency-wide and division-specific budget to actual reports are important, not only for the board, but for staff as well, so they can see where they're on a monthly basis. Program-specific budget to actual performance of each high impact program, any kind of cash flow analysis, statements of positions. Your agency audit should be reviewed and approved and communicated from an audit firm to your board, not from staff. You want it presented by the audit firm. Your annual Form 990, make sure that's delivered to the board and should be posted as well. Communication very regularly about any kind of short-term or long-term debt. Any kind of communication about pending legislation or funding changes, keeping them abreast of that. And then, of course, review and approval of your grants and contracts and major expenditures. Boards, and it's important to remember, and this gets back to making sure you have a good board, but the boards and committees for community action agencies are fiduciaries of the agency, and they have a fiduciary duty of care. So it's really important that they're getting the information they need and that they can review it and they understand what they're reviewing so they can offer oversight to staff. Well communicated transparency, what's that mean? Well, transparency, first of all, builds trust. And it's the role of leadership to share information with the board members who are the fiduciaries of the assets. And transparency is how nonprofit leaders are held accountable. It is important to build trust and foster an engaged stakeholder group. So you want a board that is that it's trustful of staff and feels comfortable asking questions, professional level questions, and staff feels comfortable answering them. Appropriate and consistent training. You want to make sure that the board receives regular training on how to read and evaluate the reports they're receiving. So you have to remember, when you get a lot of board members in, they may not have experience reading these reports. So you have to put them in an understandable fashion and also make sure they understand how to read and what they're reading. You can use that, graphs are important to use in different types of reporting, and for full results from federal and state monitoring reviews. So what we do is, like our audit committee, back years ago, our audit committee really would meet a couple times a year and review our agency audit. It would be presented to them and they'd forward it to the board or whatever. And what we started doing is they meet quarterly now in our audit committee, and we give them anything and everything that's any kind of review. So if we get any kind of review, program review, desk review, in-person review, file review, any kind of review, we send it to our audit committee for them to see and hear a report from staff on. So that's really important. And I also want to mention that transparency, I mentioned in the last slide, is important. And the way we view transparency here at our agency is you cannot be too transparent. And you have to remember, the opposite of transparency is secrecy, is how we view it. And secrecy, if you have secrecy, that builds conspiracy theories. And nobody wants your board members doing that, because it's human nature. When you have empty space, if you're not giving them the information they need, and they have empty space, it's human nature. They're going to fill it. They're going to fill it themselves, and they're going to draw their own picture. So don't let them default to that human nature. You want to give them anything and everything. Draw the full picture for them. Draw the full picture for your board. Make sure they understand anything and everything about the agency's finances. Don't let them fill in the gaps. And there's different ways you can do it, as I just discussed. And making sure they're comfortable with the types of reports you're giving them, and that they can read them, and that they're getting them regularly, and they have time to ask questions, and that they feel comfortable asking questions. The third goal is a strong partnership with your finance staff. And this includes involving key finance staff to be your trusted advisors. So make sure the board's comfortable with not just the CEO presenting this type of material, but your finance director, CFO, and give opportunities below the CFO to report too. Always give them opportunities to report to the board. You want to build the staff up as being trusted advisors to the board and to senior staff. Establish partnerships between finance and program staff. So what we do here is our finance staff sets up monthly collaborative meetings with different program leads. And they go over budget to actuals with them, have meetings regularly to find out if anything's changing, why things might be missing, et cetera. And you involve finance in all key decision-making when it comes to budgetary and cost expenditures at the agency. Such as, we're thinking about going after a new grant. One thing I learned is finance, my CFO used to hate if I'd say, oh, hey, we've just been meeting for 3 months and here's a new contract we're going after. And here's the draft of it. We're taking it to the board and it's like, wait a minute. So involving them early on when you're negotiating new grants and contracts is important. Like organizational restructures, that's another important one to include them in. Goal 4 in our finance department is strategic resource alignment. So aligning your resources, such as your strategic plan, making sure it's integrated with your agency and program budgets. Your strategic plan should address growth of discretionary funds alongside your mission of your organization. And your program budget should be aligned to support that mission. The fifth goal in finance, fifth and final goal, is continuous improvement. And we talked about this again, earlier on, kind of talked about in Roma, but excellence in performance requires regular evaluation and commitment to pivot and change. So don't ever rest on your laurels, never stop improving. It's really a never-ending pivot and a never-ending continuous improvement cycle. Things are going to change almost daily. And you don't just set policy and put it on autopilot for years. You are almost daily maneuvering and massaging and changing and improving the way you're doing things as you assess continually, not only as an agency, but in individual departments such as finance. So that gives you kind of an overview on how we run finance and things that we think are important in our finance division, our fiscal division. So I wanted to touch on human resources really quick, which has really become, it's always been an important topic, but it's really become, at least at our agency, and I think at many agencies, this has become really, really hot topic recently on trying to retain and recruit employees. So we have a huge challenge at our agency, and I'm sure many of you face this. Recruitment and retention of employees is just 180 degrees different than it used to be just a few years ago. We are reporting to our board, and the way our monthly reporting goes to our personnel committee now, it generally, a lot of times we're reporting, like, I'll take Head Start. Head Start will report out that they recruited 15 new individuals this month into Head Start. Hooray. We hired 15 new teachers or whatever. And then later on down the report, we exited 18. And we are literally going backwards. And we're hiring as fast as we can, but we're losing them faster than we can hire them. And it's been that way for the last few years now, since really the beginning of the pandemic. And I think community action agencies were always a little bit behind the curve trying to fill positions anyways, because of pay versus public, schools and different things. We always had a tough time, and you really needed people that really wanted to be part of your mission, and you tried to sell other aspects of it. But this is just become an urgent situation at this point. The same as many other employees and most other people are facing. We cannot retain employees as fast as we're losing them faster than we can hire. So this is a new world. I mean, you no longer can be super picky and choosy, and you're not going to get 50 applications when you have an opening. It's 180 degrees different. You're going to have fewer applicants, and they're going to have different views of the world and different views of what's important to them. The applicant pool now has totally different values than they did 3 years ago. So, so how we source today is not like yesterday. One of the things we've noticed is the applicants have a much shorter attention span. So we kind of did the old school thing where someone would apply, they filled out an application, we asked them to submit their resume, we asked them for other backup documents. This drug out for weeks, if not months, and then you scheduled interviews. Anyways, the whole process just went on forever. Used to drive me crazy, but now I think what we're finding is you applicants that if they can't apply quickly, sometimes they want to do it from their phone. They look something up on their phone and they want to be able to apply for a job, submit their name and basic information and hit click. If you're requiring all kinds of lengthy applications to be filled out in additional documents at that stage, you've probably already lost them. By the time you think, oh my gosh, this is a good employee I'm interested in, by the time you call them, they've already taken another job. That's what we're finding. We're already behind the curve before we even try and interview. So we're trying to develop, I know at our agency, we're trying to develop much more quick application procedures where they can apply, at least initial application where they can apply quickly and we can see, is it someone we're even interested in? We can always get the other information later. Another important topic we're discussing is incentives. That's kind of the new method. It seems that a lot of the talent wants to know, what kind of carrots are out there. What kind of incentives do you offer? And so we've initiated and we've been considering even additional things such as sign-on bonuses, extra holidays. We're discussing, should we pay other employees, finder's fees, so to speak, or something if they recruit someone on our behalf, just things like that. You have to be totally creative and you have to start thinking about how you're going to hire people. And the way you did it a few years ago really does not pertain anymore, and you should really throw it out. One of the things we've recognized and I've discussed, and I'll touch on a little more, is that the values of the employee workforce have changed dramatically, especially the last 3 years. But if you look at a 12-year period, their perspectives, if you look at the studies, they've changed dramatically regarding benefits and prioritization of the benefits and what's important to them. So these are some statistics we found over the last 10 or 12 years is, if you look at, these two topics, which is the lighter bars 2010 versus darker bar 2022, the importance of joining an organization. Retirement and healthcare used to, was important to 32% for retirement, 25% healthcare. Those numbers have jumped to close to half the workforce now. That's important. So you've really almost seen those almost double. And then when you look at the importance of staying on, same thing. Retirement and healthcare have jumped dramatically in importance to the employees over the last 10 years. And I would say that's escalated on hyperdrive the last 3 years. So it's you need to really change the way you're reviewing your jobs. It's not just wages, but it's your retirement package, your healthcare package. It's the whole package. This is the same information, another representation of it. You can see since 2015, retirement plans and healthcare plans, as far as importance on employee retention, have gone up dramatically. And the other thing I'll throw in there is that's become important in the last few years is flexible work schedules are now becoming very, very important. So you got your big three there: retirement, flexible work, and health are just as important, if not more important, than some of the other traditional things such as wages. More than half employees are open to leaving their employer, over 50%. So one of the areas we're focused on at this agency is being able to clearly discuss with our employees. We're taking a different spin on this. We are trying to make sure our wages are competitive. We're trying to make sure we have a good retirement plan, good health plan. We're trying to put the whole package together. But one of the things we've decided to focus on that we think we can separate ourselves from the rest of the market is we're focusing on developing clear career development and pathways for employees to move upward through our organization. Both with, not just within their specific programs, but really throughout the agency. So we're viewing these opportunities, and if we can develop a strategy for each individual employee, we think this might be one way we can retain employees. So that's something we're working on today. Developing clear pathways for professional growth. And we think it makes for an employee that's more engaged, that enjoys their workplace more, and also sees opportunities on the horizon at their current job rather than having to hop around. So that's an important retention plan that we're working on that we think will set us apart from some of the other companies that we're competing against. We hear a lot about, well, gosh, I could go down the street and make more. So my HR staff said, can they? So they ran these numbers. It's just, we threw these in just to show we kind of ran some numbers here locally, but we looked at a Del Taco down the street from us to see what the wages were. So we just pulled them up and said, okay, what are they hiring at? So on the left is assistant general store manager. So that's someone obviously that has a little bit of experience, not a brand new employee, has some experience, but their starting rate, just so you know, is $18.50 with a maximum rate of $29 an hour, which isn't too shabby for fast food Del Taco. And then for entry level, just a team store member, so this would be more like entry level, somebody that really doesn't have the experience. It's just like, hey, I'm fresh out of school, I'm looking for a job. They're starting at, around minimum wage, $15.50, but their max is $25 an hour. And so anyways, that was kind of eye-opening to us. And they're even higher for others. Like, In-N-Out's famous for this. If you have an In-N-Out near you, it's like, they hang those signs up that, they're paying like $25 an hour or whatever down there. But even just some of the standard fast food restaurants, you have to look at that, and you have to look at the market and see what you're paying, because if they can work elsewhere for more, they're probably going to do it. We talked about career paths, but what makes an employee stay that is not tied to their hourly rate? So we think, things such as benefits, such as health insurance and retirement, but that's why we're focusing on how can we make ourselves a different place to work? And that's why we're focusing on feedback, career paths, and career development, because we want to set ourselves apart from the others. And we think that's a way to do it. And we think that's a way that we might be able to crack this nut where we can get employees to want to work for us. The word can get out, people can stay longer and stay with our agency for a longer period of time. I think the days are gone. You're not seeing people work so much 10, 15, 20 years as a single employer. They're gonna job hop a little more nowadays. And that getting back to something too, that if you're still looking at resumes and applications where you say, oh my gosh, this guy's a job hopper, or this gal's a job hopper, you might want to throw that out, because that's different today. And I know some of my crew in HR would do that. They'd say, oh, wait, this person, they've had 4 jobs in the last 12 years. And I'm like, that's not that many for today's workforce. It's just not. And that used to be frowned upon. So that's just a side note, kind of an example of rethinking how you're looking at applications and people they're applying. But when we looked at how to set ourselves apart, that's where we landed on career paths and career development. Is can we set ourselves apart? Because there's going to be limits on what we can do with pay and retirement and health benefits. There just is. So how else can we set ourselves apart? So that's why we're focusing on this. We think will be a winner for us as we move forward is creating clear and understandable paths for careers and career development for our employees. And also another important thing is make sure you market yourselves correctly. If you're doing such things as that, then market them and tell people, don't just throw your wage out there. And if you're doing unique things with vacation or non-standard work hours or unique health plans or retirement plans or whatever it is, make sure you include that. Don't just throw your base wage out there, out into the atmosphere and hope that someone sees it and is going to like it. Market everything you're doing and market what you do in the community. Because a lot of people enjoy what we do out in the community too. So, and make sure you tell people the story. Okay, wrapping up. We're getting close to an hour here, so I'm going to wrap up. But the last thing I wanted to talk about is just some support services. Just the last couple things is just areas you might want to have support in outside of your typical staff roles. So the following are just some examples of service contracts, short and long term, that we use and to support our agency in conjunction with our different departments. Legal counsel, unless you have the money and wherewithal and you're big enough to have in-house legal counsel, I don't know there's any cap agencies that do. You're going to use a contract legal counsel. Make sure you have a good one. That's really important. The sweet spot is one that's super good that doesn't cost you too much. But if you can find that sweet spot, hooray for you. And you're going to want them involved in your human resource activities a bit, and other administrative activities. When I worked in city government, it was much more intense. We had legal counsel at every city council meeting and planning commission meeting, and I wouldn't go that far. We don't have legal counsel at our board meetings unless there's a specific reason to have them there. We don't go that far, but having them review specific contracts or other human resource issues is important. Oftentimes you have brokers or other contracted companies that help you with your healthcare and employee benefits, which is typical. Make sure, again, you want a good one. All these, you want good ones. You can have consultants with their risk management. IT consultation is important. IT is one of those things. I've been at our agency 13 years, and we've bounced back and forth between, do we have a fully articulated staffed IT department with very little consultation or consultants helping, or are you better off with like one or two leads and have a big IT consultant contract? We've gone back and forth, but what we're using now is a mix. We have a good sized IT department that helps, especially with our daily troubleshooting and activities in our agency, with staff within computers and making sure they can access the technology they need. But we also use some consultants on bigger picture items. Financial software, you're going to need consultants on that. Marketing and advertising, we do have an outreach staff, a couple of outreach staff members, but we also utilize contracts for bigger items, especially with programs that might get a big budget specifically for big marketing promotion activities. We might use our contractor to help do that. Maybe it's like EATC marketing. If you get a grant for that, maybe you use your consultant to help with that kind of stuff. And then sometimes we use consultants to help with grant development and writing. We have an in-house staff that do that, but when we're getting busy and there's particular big contracts out there, especially ones we're not familiar with that we might want to go after, sometimes we pull in some consultants to help with that. And that wraps up the presentation. And there's a bigger, that's not quite the whole group, but there's a more clear shot of the staff at our last staff development day. So anyways, we'll make, I appreciate your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Lawrence, I don't know if we have anything in the chat. And we're going to make the PowerPoint available. And then if you need any additional documents I shared with you, I'd be happy to send those to you. So with that, Lawrence, do we have any questions?
It looked like Cessna had a question about what the PRE committee was from earlier in your presentation.
Okay, yeah. So PRE stands for Program Review and Evaluation Committee. And what we use that committee to do is They get updates from all of our programs, monthly updates on activities, reports on data, you know, how they're, are they meeting client numbers, and they report out to that committee. They also review if we have new programs we're thinking of initiating, new lines of programs, they review those. So like grant applications, new program lines we're looking at, they review those with that committee. And like I said, they get very robust reports from each of our programs monthly. And we've developed this standard or this kind of practice where our reporting out tries to mimic or does kind of mimic some of the national standards. So it's all kind of formatted the same. And so we have the standard formatting and procedures reporting out we follow, and they get it monthly. Now, we don't go through every report in detail with them during the meeting because we'd be there for hours. So we give them all the monthly reports. And of course, they get them ahead of time so they can review them. And then we might go through and just do some highlights, you know, for each program, or we might highlight if there's something major going on in one particular program, we'll talk about that program, or we might go through and just do a couple of highlights from each program and then open it up for questions. But we do that, we use that committee as monthly feedback on our program activities and any new programs we're thinking about undertaking. Any other questions, Lawrence?
Well, Tashira's got her hand up. There we go.
Yeah, Jeremy, I have a question regarding the staffing. So we've been through some interviews and we've had that whole great resignation and things of that sort. And one of the things that I find challenging is the generation gaps. So I have like older staff that don't want to be a training, don't want to be the mentor. They want people to come in that can hit the ground running. And in some of the positions, people they don't have that experience to come hit the ground running. And so I'm wondering how you deal with the different generations that work within your organization. It's a different climate of employee, right, that's looking for jobs, like you said. And not everyone takes to that, and not everyone understands that role and how to deal with. And so we're finding, okay, someone might be here for a hot minute. No one's coming into the interview saying, you know, what are your health benefits and what's your retirement benefits? That's not what we're hearing at all. So just how do you deal with just the different generations within your organization, within the hiring?
I'm sorry, the high end?
The hiring.
Oh, hiring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, I hope I understood the question. So you're asking about how do you encourage existing employees to help with the onboarding and different things. So, you know, not everybody's strong in that category. So you have to recognize that, you know, each employee's gonna have different strengths, and some employees are really strong at, you know, at reviewing data and analyzing data, and they might not be a people person. They're like, well, I know what I'm doing, but I don't really want to sit someone and train them or mentor them. But there's a couple ways we've tried doing it. One is, you know, try, if they're not a people person, don't like to do it in person, then try using Teams or Zoom. You know, try, you know, mentoring with a group, like saying, hey, would you mind giving a presentation on this topic?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're an expert in Head Start data. And we have a lot of new employees in Head Start that would really like to know why you're collecting the data, how you're collecting it, what it's used for. So how would you like to give to our managers group or our Head Start group? We have different groups in our agency. How would you like to do a Teams presentation and present what you're doing? And we've found that some employees prefer that method, you know, and they can train without, you know, in a different style.
Mm-hmm.
And you can record it and you can show it at different times. And you might have other employees that are stronger at just doing one-on-one training. So you let them do that. So you just have to find different niches for people. But, you know, it's important to remind everyone too, that, you know, the agency is only as strong as all of the employees, and we're either all going to sync together or we're all going to float together. And
Right.
So everyone has to do their part, but maybe giving them options, try that, like say, okay, we need everybody to help. So everyone's gonna have to play a role helping, but we'll let you pick, the role you're gonna play. Are you stronger at writing documents? Maybe the employee would be better at putting together the PowerPoint and the data on the screen and someone else present it.
Mm.
And you do partnerships that way. So try and find a strength that everyone's comfortable with and maybe let them pick, say, which one of these are you stronger at? Which style would you pick? And give them the power to make that choice.
Thank you.
Jeremy, thanks for this presentation. The one question I had was about your software you use to get your unduplicated count.
Yeah, so we are developing a program through Microsoft Dynamics 365, I think it's called. Whipley's helping us do it. And we're developing our own program that's feeding up. So data collection is like a huge thing. I mentioned that earlier. And trying to get, so what we're doing is we're still allowing each one of our programs to operate their own proprietary software that they need to use, like Child Plus or whatever it is in Head Start or whatever. But the question is, how do you feed that all up and gather the correct data and the data you need to make sure it's unduplicated counts and you know who you're dealing with and you have all the correct data. We've skinned the cat for the most part. For all of our programs, it's working. We're feeding up the data up into Microsoft Dynamics. And except for WIC, we're having trouble with WIC. The state Department of Health is being difficult to work with as far as what they're going to allow. Excuse me, I'm sorry. As far as what they're going to allow us to use and see, and as far as the data, they're being really, really restrictive on it. So we're still working on it. I think we're going to get there. And then our food bank, we're having trouble just because it's just complex and complicated. We're going to get there. We're going to get there sooner rather than later on our food bank. But it's Microsoft Dynamics platform. It's Whipley's helping us put it together. We're big enough. We hired a staff member to lead this CRM, client relationship management program that we're putting together, this tool. And we have a single, kind of IT type employee that's leading it. And like I said, we're up to, it's live. I mean, I pulled it up this morning, the live number. And our current 12-month unduplicated count was like 100, and I put on the screen, it was 100,000 on the screen, but I think it was like 107,000. And that excludes most of our WIC numbers and some of our food bank numbers. It's difficult though, super difficult, super time consuming, and a lot of work. But if you ever want to do a deep dive, I'd be happy to hook you up with our employees that are the lead on it and how we're doing it. But because we're getting close, we're getting close to having this conquered. And I'm pretty excited about it.
Is that once a year that everything feeds into it, or is the idea that at any time you can go on there and see what that duplicated count is?
Yeah, it'd be live anytime, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is. We'd be feeding data up continuously into it. Yeah. And the task is you don't want to have to re-enter everything manually. You don't want to have to take Head Start or WIC or whatever and take all their data monthly and have someone go and re-enter it. You don't want that to happen. You want the programs to communicate at least on the basic data and information you need. And you want that to be able to feed up with as much or as little manual manipulation as possible. That's the idea. That's the ideal situation. Where the employee's entering it into their proprietary software and it feeds up. And trying to get those to communicate and match up is super complicated and super complex. But we're spending a lot of time and a lot of money on the effort because we feel that if we can crack this nut and figure it out, it's going to be really, really super valuable for us. and a really good tool to use. And that's why we're putting an awful lot of effort into that.
Once you crack that nut, is that something that you'll make available either free or for a price to others?
Oh, yeah. No, I'd have no problem sharing it. Yeah. Yeah. How we accomplished it. We're pretty broad, not everybody has WIC, but we're pretty broad-based community action agency. So we have a lot of different programs. So if we can figure out all of our different programs, it's going to cover most of what's out there.
Yeah.
But WIC, it isn't a shock to me that WIC's going to be probably the last one and the toughest one to figure out, but that doesn't shock me. But anyone that has WIC and has dealt with Department of Health, there, it's an interesting contract to manage, but yeah. But we'll get there. I'm very confident. We're still negotiating with state WIC on how they're gonna let us communicate and see the data. So, yeah.
Awesome. The last thing I had, and maybe this is more for Lawrence, you mentioned, or for Cal Kappa, you mentioned healthcare and being competitive there, and that's one area I think that we suck at, and it's pretty expensive, and we use a third-party broker that we've used for a long time, and I'm just curious if maybe Cal Kappa or somebody could do a study to see what others are doing. So, I just love to find something better, and maybe it's just everybody has a problem with it.
Yeah, let me tell you how bad we suck at it. This last year, we went to renew our health plan, and Anthem came back to us. Well, first they came late, really late in the process, and they said, "Oh, by the way, your data, your usage data indicates the need for a 60% rate increase."
Wow.
Yeah, so we just all tipped over and had a heart attack and all that stuff. And it was just horrible. The whole process was horrible. We ended up just beating them down and trying to change our plan. We got down to where we only saw a 28% increase only, which, our employees, I hear it every time I walk out in the hallway. When I walk out after this meeting in the hallway, someone will corner me about it, because it's just, and I don't blame them. I mean, we saw a 28% rate increase, and it's just horrible. And I don't have an answer for you, but years ago, Cal Kappa, the board, we kicked around the idea of trying to put together some kind of a joint, like a JPA or pooled type activity with, community action agencies statewide. We could never really get it off the ground because, it'd be a lot of work, but if someone could figure it out, it'd be great. But I'd surely support if, the network was able to figure out a solution to this problem that would help people, because we're like you, we're really bad at it. And we have a broker, and, we've hired a broker, and they're supposed to be really good, but trying to go out and renew your health insurance is, for us anyways, has been just a horrible task every year. And it's super expensive, and I think we'll lose some employees this year just because of that, for sure. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. It's, if we could figure out a way to, as a group, consolidate into some kind of a pool or JPA, or join, maybe there's an existing JPA that would let us in. I don't know. I know from our end, we're exploring that. We've been poking around, seeing if there's any kind of pooled or JPA group we could join as a community action agency. We're trying to find one. But I don't know if anyone out there in the group on the call has a better solution, but yeah, it's not good.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. I think we got a 14% increase, which I was disappointed about, but now thanks. I don't feel as bad.
Now, I mean, I just made you feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like someone has their hand up, Johnny.
Yeah, thanks. So related to that, do you find, because you mentioned in your presentation specifically healthcare and retirement repeatedly, but not other benefits, do you find that people are looking for a really robust benefits package, or are those two really number one and everything else is sort of extra investment that maybe isn't getting as much mileage out of it?
The three I showed on the screen are the top three we hear about, are health plan, retirement plan, and what was the other one?
Job
Work-
development?
Work scheduling, different scheduling, alternative work schedules. Those are the big three. A lot of the new employees we're hiring well, a lot of them come in with the expectation like, oh, a lot of them, you'll be interviewing them in a final interview and they're like, so I can work remote, right? And it's like, well, wait a minute, what? So, I mean, it's just different thinking today. So those are the big three, is they want alternative work schedules or flexible, I guess I'll call it flexible work schedules. They want, don't want to have to worry about health insurance and decent retirement. So when they hear Gordon Ramsay talk, they know, oh yeah, I'm going to retire rich or whatever, but there's a good plan that, that they can get into retirement on. So those are the big three we're hearing. There's all kinds of other ones. I mean, daycare or childcare is huge. We've talked about that internally too. Could we peel, so we do, it sounds kind of funny. We're sitting around offering, childcare services for thousands of people in our county every day. And yet we don't have any way of offering it to our employees. So we've been talking about that. Is there any way we could set up some kind of childcare for our employees? That's an option. But that's big too. And that one touches a little bit too on the alternative work schedule. Okay, well, if you don't offer childcare, can I at least have alternative work schedules so I can get kids to and from school or to and from childcare or work from home some days when they're going to be home or whatever. And 3 years ago, that kind of stuff was kind of most of us push that stuff off. It's like, well, yeah, if you want to go work in Silicon Valley, yeah, they let you work from home or from your pool or whatever, next to your pool on a laptop. That was all, fantasy stuff. But the technology is there to do it. Of course, we all learned that during the pandemic. But we're off. What we find ourselves settling into is we have very few employees that are able to work remote 100% of the time. That just doesn't exist. And some of our employees can never work remote. I mean, if you're teaching in a Head Start classroom, it's impossible. You can't work remote. You're working in the classroom. Some of our other jobs in between that, we're allowing some schedules, like maybe they're remote 2 days a week. Or they have alternative work schedules where they work, different days. So we are allowing that in some positions. We're trying to become open-minded. I'll warn everyone what's coming down the road. I'd say we'll start seeing stuff in the next few years is 32-hour work weeks, which is a 4-day work week. And I don't mean 4-day work week like 4/10s, like, oh, you're still working 40 hours, but in 4 days. I'm talking 32-hour work week where you're getting paid the same, but you're doing it in 32 hours instead of 40. And anything over 32 hours would be overtime. But you're making the same weekly wage. So you'd have to bump up the hourly wage to match that. And they've tried if you're starting to hear the rumblings, some of the electeds in Sacramento have already started talking about it. And there's been article after article. If you get I've gotten bombarded on my news feeds with, another state or another company that tried it out and it worked and it was incredible. And we got as much, the same or more product of our employees for 32 hours paying them, and they're happier. Now, it almost seems too good to be true, but that's out there. And that is probably coming, I would say, in California, you'll see a lot of that over the next 3 to 4 years for sure. A lot of talk of that. So be open-minded and at some point enjoy your 4-day work week, I guess.
I'm ready for it.
Except when you're like us, when you're executive directors or higher level, it's 7-day work week, right? Everyone else can enjoy their 4-day work week. But I think when you talk about all this different stuff, and look, it's kind of cool because, the glass really, you need to view it as half full, because really what it is an opportunity to be creative instead of saying, okay, look, I have to do it this way. This, and a lot of your HR departments, if you talk to HR people, they're like, well, we've always done applications this way, and you can't ask this question, you need to ask this question and everything. And my HR director is the first to admit that those old HR practices and thinking and how you hire and how you pay and everything, you need to rethink that. So it's kind of exciting in a way. It opens up an awful lot of opportunities, and in the readjustment period, which is what we're in right now, is always the most painful. But as you come out the other end, it really offers some exciting opportunities. Oh, the other thing we're looking at too, we've discussed, is do we go to real-time pay? That's kind of a new thing too, where you pay people on and ADP offers this now. We do ADP payroll, where you can have real-time pay where they can log onto their app at any time and cash out the hours they've worked in the past 3 days, say, or whatever. I want to get paid right now. That's a new thing that's probably coming down. That's already out there. There's companies doing it. And ADP, I just got an alert from them. They offer that now, where you can set employees up on this real-time pay, where they can cash out their pay at any time. They can, 5 days into the payroll, it's like, I need money. And if you think about it, if it's not any more work for you, you're not paying them more. You're just paying them for the work they did. And if they can get it real time, that might eliminate payday lending and things like that, where they're getting really 50 cents on the dollar for that. Where, hey, if they have an emergency come up and they have to fix their car, I can't wait a week and a half for payday. I can take some of my pay right now and get my car fixed. So it really could be a good thing. Of course, there's going to be those naysayers that say it's going to be mismanaged and but it could end up being a good thing. But that's another thing that's coming down the road that we've discussed with our HR department. Is that something we want to investigate offering for our employees? So it's a big new world out there when it comes to employee benefits and HR practices. And like I said, you might as well be excited about it. You can either be excited or dread it. And I choose to be excited about it and think it's going to open up new opportunities and cool ways of doing work and how you interact with your employees. Let's see, any other questions? I appreciate people. Lawrence, I think, has been putting some links in there in the chat box. 4-day work week studies. Yeah, there's a ton of those coming out. I just got one the other day. I think it was from, I can't remember if it was Massachusetts or Connecticut had done one. There's some from other countries in Europe that have done them. There's a lot of those coming out right now. And of course, alternative work schedules are different, but similar topic where you might do a 4-10, or you might offer different types of work cycles, days to get to their 40 hours. Well, if there's no other questions, I'm glad you had me today. I hope you found it, enjoyable and learned a few things. Lawrence is going to send out the PDF of the slide deck. If you think about something in it or see something in it that you'd like a copy of, if you say, oh, I want a copy of their strategic plan or whatever it is you want, I'd be happy to share anything and everything we have. You can email Lawrence, or you can email me if you have my email address. But if you want to, you can email Lawrence. He'll pass it along, and I can share anything you'd like. I'd be happy to do it. So I'm going to turn it back over to Lawrence.
Thank you for that, Jeremy. Absolutely. I'll be sending everybody who registered, including the rest of the executive director, CEO group, a copy of the recording and the presentation deck. So you can reply to that link or that email if you've got more questions or would like to ask Jeremy for some documents. A couple of links I'll draw your attention to in the chat. One is for the feedback for this call. Really appreciate, try to keep it very simple. I ask a 1-question survey and then option for feedback. So it's not an in-depth survey. And if you'd like to register for the second call in the series, that link is there as well. if you haven't registered already. And that's pretty much that with that. Thank you all for joining us today. Hopefully this was a valuable use of your time, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.